Hi there, welcome. This is the Mobile Legal Clinic's Expungement Pardon Clinic Part 2 of how to fill out the Wisconsin pardon application. My name is Megan Morsey and my pronouns are she, her. I am the Milwaukee Justice Center's Mobile Legal Clinic and the Expungement Pardon Clinic Coordinator.
And my name is Maricruz Sanchez. My pronouns are she, her, ella, and I am the Public Allies Milwaukee AmeriCorps member, serving with the Milwaukee Justice Center and the Mobile Legal Clinic. So how to prepare your pardon. We really want to encourage everyone to have a copy of the pardon application with them either printed out or on another tab on your screen while you watch this video, just so you can follow along as we go through each section of it and give you some tips on how to prepare it. So the easiest way to find this pardon application is to go to a Google search. So just go to google.com and in that search bar, you can enter Wisconsin pardon application. It will be the first one that pops up on that search. And just to be sure, it'll say pardon information and then dash Tony Evers. And it'll send you to the link or to the website that is evers.wisconsin.gov. And on that first page that you search, you click on that first search one, and then it'll have a copy of the PDF of the application. So we strongly encourage you to have it, like I said, while we go through all of the sections of this, so you can follow along. Another thing we want to mention is that handwriting your pardon application is acceptable. They accept handwritten applications or typed, so either one, whatever works best for you. You will also need the 3 certified documents. We talked about these in our our part 1 video. The 3 documents you are going to need are the felony information, the criminal complaint, and the judgment of conviction. You will need these to fill out the application because the information that the application requires is information that you're going to find on these 3 documents. So make sure you have these before you start filling out your pardon application. Some other supportive documents or things that you will need that will help are CCAP. So that's Wisconsin Circuit Court Access Program. Again, you can just Google CCAP. It'll probably be the first one that pops up. And this way you can search yourself. So you will put your name, first name, last name, and then your date of birth so that we know that you're looking at the right person. And then when you do that search, you will see everything that you have on your record. So it's really helpful to have that kind of pulled up so that you can verify as well that it was a felony that you were charged with, because there could be a possibility where it was brought down to a misdemeanor. So you just want to make sure that when you search yourself up, you are able to see your record and verify that it was indeed a felony that you were charged with, because again, pardon is only for felonies and not for misdemeanors. So you want to make sure that you're looking yourself up to get that information. You can also get that information from the 3 documents, but we also encourage you to just look at CCAP. Another document we recommend having is a recent copy of your resume, as well as any copies of degrees, diplomas, certificates of achievement, GED, things like that. So that's really helpful to include in your pardon packet. And then also an outline of your responses to some of the more in-depth or complex questions. As you go through the application, you'll notice that it has like in italics, and it says, attach additional pages if necessary. So make sure that you attach those if necessary and have the number of the question that you're answering in that additional page.
Okay.
Anything to add on this, Megan?
Just that CCAP also doesn't have things that maybe earlier than the 1992, 1991. So if your case is older than the 90s, just be mindful, CCAP may not even have it. That's why it's even more important to have the certified records if you're able to get those, of course, while filling out the pardon application.
Mm-hmm.
So the cover page of the pardon application lays out the eligibility standards, which we discussed in the first video on YouTube. Again, it's 5 years must pass or longer, at least 5 years has passed between the last day the individual who's seeking pardon was on a sentence through the Department of Corrections. So that means that they We're not on probation. We're not on extended supervision for at least 5 years. And that's for any crime, or any conviction, which means that you may have to wait an extra 5 years if you have a misdemeanor after a felony, and make sure that there's 5 years post that misdemeanor sentence. So again, the eligibility standards, as we discussed in the first video, goes into depth on that. Similarly, the eligibility standard, the one that is sort of a hard and fast rule, is that an individual who's seeking pardon cannot be on the sex offender registry. So if you are someone who has to register annually with the sex offender registry in any jurisdiction, you are ineligible for a Wisconsin state pardon by the governor. Pardons will be rejected without a hearing due to ineligibility. You would get a letter informing you of your ineligibility status. And so just going through those eligibility standards is very important. That's something we do in clinic, and we can do that over the phone with individuals as well. But if you're planning on filling out your pardon at home, again, being mindful of the eligibility standards is really important. Applications must be complete. They state that a couple of times throughout the pardon application and in their FAQs, or their frequently asked questions. Every question needs to be addressed, or NA, which means not applicable, or a couple dashes, or nothing to add, or no information. That's fine too, just so that they know that you've at least considered the question, even if there's nothing to add in that question. Applications that are difficult to read. So if you are doing it by hand and you have poor handwriting, just be mindful that if the applications are difficult to read and they're not able to make out the text, they will reject it on that basis as well. Probably encourage you to redo it or resubmit it. If you do need more space, each and every question that requires text will have an opportunity to add additional pages. But if you're going to do that, make sure that you add in those pages right after the question that needs that additional space, and that you clearly itemize which question is being answered by that additional page. The pardons need to be mailed in. You can't email the pardons in. Pardons need to be emailed in, or rather mailed in, and the mailing address is on not only the cover page, but it's also located on the checklist, which is located on page 9 of the pardon application. They really encourage you, and I would encourage you as well, to make a copy of your pardon application before you mail it out, so that you have a personal copy for your own records. And I think that's really important, that you know exactly what was sent in and what they are reviewing on your behalf. Similarly, even if you have somebody else who assists or prepares the pardon application for you, you as the pardon seeker will still have to sign and date the pardon application and get it notarized. So you would have to sign and date the pardon application in front of the notary. And we can talk about that more when we get to the section that addresses certification. But yeah, if someone else is seeking, rather helping you fill out the pardon, that person should identify themselves and put their name on the application as well. And I will share with you that due to high demand across the entire state of individuals seeking a pardon, the application hearings may take over a year. So it's really important that you try to be really focused and dedicated to submitting your pardon as soon as possible, knowing that there is quite a bit of interest in people that are seeking pardons currently. Mari Cruz had mentioned earlier, I'll bring it up again. I put here the website to the pardon application, and specifically the FAQs, or the frequently asked questions. It's really important to read through those before you fill out your application. There's a lot of information, a lot of questions that you may have actually get answered in their frequently asked questions. And then always remember to be filling out the most updated version of the pardon. If your pardon says updated in August of 2019, you have the old one. And so right now the pardoning board is only accepting their most recent updated version, which is last revised on August of 2021. anything there that you'd like to add as well, Maricruz?
No, just emphasizing that they make sure that the application they're looking at the very bottom, it says last revised August 2021. So make sure you're using the most up-to-date one. The application also has a direct link if you're looking at it on your computer on the PDF style. It has a direct link to the FAQ page that you just showed. So you can just click on that and it'll send you right there. So for section 1, this is where it will ask for your personal information, just like your demographic information. So name, date of birth, contact information. You want to make sure that you put your most updated contact information. The pardoning board really mostly emails or snail mails you. So via USPS, that would be the methods that they use to communicate with you. They don't typically call. So make sure you have an email address that you can check pretty regularly, as well as your most up-to-date address. And then again, if you happen to move or if your email changes, anything like that, you want to make sure you notify the Pardon Advisory Board of any changes to your contact information. That is really important. So yeah, fill out section 1, name, email, phone, work phone, place of birth. Gender, it says optional. Again, you do not have to answer that if you don't want to, but as Megan said, you want to just make it known that you at least considered the question. So you can put NA if you don't want to answer or something like that. But filling out that personal information with your most up-to-date contact information is the most important thing to remember. And then making sure that you put any former names, maiden names, aliases that you may have used, as well as the dates that you use them. The Pardon Advisory Board would like to know that information. So that is really all the tips we have for section 1. That's just filling out your information. Anything to add on this, Megan?
No.
Okay. So for section 2, this is the criminal history. So this is where you're going to need those 3 certified documents to fill it out. Yeah, like it says here, you will want to list all the crimes and cases that you are seeking a pardon on under question 2. They provide 3 sections and you may need to add additional pages if necessary. So the 3 certified documents from your case files are really helpful and can help inform how to answer the boxes in these questions. So I believe it's the judgment of conviction that will have the crime, the court case number, the county of conviction, the date of the offense, sentencing date. It'll have all of that. So you can just copy and paste if you're working on a computer, or directly just write it into the application from what is on that certified document of the judgment of conviction. And again, to emphasize, question 2 or section 2 is where you list the crimes that you're seeking a pardon on. So those are the felonies that you want to get a pardon for, as well as any misdemeanors that are tied into that felony conviction, as well as where you would list these. And there's 3 sections, but if you need more space, obviously just add the additional page and make sure you clearly list that it is for section 2, criminal history, question 2, just so that there's no confusion on that. And then for question 3, so this is just where it's going to ask that you have those 3 certified copies included. So again, the felony information, criminal complaint, and judgment of conviction. If you have those certified copies attached, you can do the check yes. And that is really all you need for section 3, but make sure that you have the certified copies of those as well. Now for question 4, this is where it asks if you have been convicted of any other crimes other than those listed above. So this includes any juvenile cases or adjudication, any cases that or convictions that were already expunged or sealed, and then any convictions from any other jurisdiction, any other state, and as well as anything that went to the federal level. So this is where you're going to include possibly like any subsequent misdemeanors that came after your felony that you're seeking a pardon for, any run-ins that you had. Actually, that might be the next one. Sorry, not that. So these are just for ones that you were convicted for. And like I mentioned, juvenile, so anything that happened before you were 18, expunge or sealed cases, other misdemeanor cases, other state cases, and federal convictions. This is where you would include that information on here. And again, it'll ask for the crime, the court case number, the county of conviction, the sentence you received, and then the date that you completed that sentence. That is again for section 4. And if you need additional space, make sure that you attach an additional document and clearly list what question you are answering. Anything to add on that question number 4, Megan?
No.
Okay. And then continuing in section 2, criminal history, question 5, it asks if you were ordered to pay restitution for any of the crimes. Just check the box yes or no. And then if yes, make sure you answer the following question as well. And then if you have proof of full payment of restitution, it is a good idea to attach that to your application. Again, putting that it was answering question 5 or just like an additional attachment for question 5. And then question 6 is if you have ever applied for a pardon before. I think that's pretty straightforward. You can check yes or no. If yes, include like the date that you initially submitted that request. And then if you received a formal hearing or a formal denial from the Pardon Advisory Board, and then just provide a little bit of more information if that is something that you have requested before. But if no, you just check no and then move on to the next question. Now for question number 7, still section 2 of criminal history. So it asks you to list any other police contacts you have had, other than the cases that you list above in questions 2 and 4. So these can be deferred judgments, criminal charges that were later dropped, dismissed, or acquitted at trial, or subject to a criminal investigation. So failure to disclose these offenses or interactions with the law enforcement can negatively impact the likelihood of you obtaining a pardon. So you want to be really transparent and clear if you had any other run-ins with the law, even if you weren't charged with anything, if you were just like arrested, booked, and then released. That is something you want to put in this section. And like I said, just be transparent about that because we don't want it to negatively impact your likelihood of obtaining a pardon if you choose to not disclose it on here. And that's just for for question 7. And you can explain if you did have any run-ins, you can, they provide a box down there so you can just explain in your own words the interaction, including the date, state, and county that it happened in, and then like the circumstances that led up to that interaction or run-in with the law. And again, attach any additional pages necessary if you need to, just to provide more information. And that is for question 7. Anything to add on question 7, Megan?
Yeah, I mean, if you have been arrested and charges didn't result, it is truly, and it's hard for me to say that as a defense attorney, but it is in your best interest to put that information and include it in this section, because the Pardon Advisory Board is going to be looking at your Department of Justice record. And anytime you've had a contact with law enforcement where they have taken your fingerprint or your picture or have detained you in some form, that will be on that report. And so it really is a matching up of those reports of what you can remember. Now, when you're answering this, it's hard, and I can understand this, it's really hard with dates. So I would say to demonstrate your wanting to answer the question as best as you can. And I can understand that some of these things have happened very far back in an individual's history. If you can say it was the fall of 1996, or if it was in December of 2001, I think that shows a fair attempt of the individual trying to provide as much information as you can. But it's sort of a factual question of just asking you to put on paper what you can recall as law enforcement contact again. And I think that clearly trying to be as honest as you can in that answer. Obviously recognizing that I understand that personally might be hard to do if you're trying to put the best foot forward to ask for a pardon to be given. But here the question really does, I think, beg for your full integrity and transparency as to your law enforcement contacts. The bottom line here, Mari Cruz, I forgot to put the number 8, but that pertains to the 8th question, which is the restraining orders.
Yeah, so that is again kind of a straightforward question. If you have ever gotten a restraining order of protection against you, check the box yes or no. If yes, it gives you the option, or not the option, but it tells you to explain what happened and when. So be sure that, again, you are honest and transparent about that, because that is something that is going to come up regardless when they do your DOJ or background check. So it's best to just be able to explain it there in your own words, what happened. And again, attaching any additional pages if necessary, if you feel the need to explain more than what space is provided there. But yeah, really strongly encourage for 7 and 8 to be honest and transparent about that. I think it's best when you answer them honestly and it's the information is coming from you rather than it's being something that comes up during your hearing and you're kind of caught off guard. So yeah, make sure that 7 and 8 are answered honestly, and provide the additional explanations if necessary, so that it's your narrative and your explanation of what happened as well. Anything to add for section 2? That will complete the section 2, which asks about your criminal history. Again, having those 3 documents next to you will really help you fill them out. So yeah.
Okay, so section 3 is grounds for a pardon. So this is the section where they are asking questions for larger, longer narrative responses. I would encourage, before going into section 3, having taken the time to look at each question and maybe writing an outline or writing a few major themes that you want to express in each of these questions before just tackling them and jumping in and writing them, kind of plotting out how you would like to answer these questions, because they do ask a lot of information, and this is really the heart of the paper pardon application. Similarly, before answering or going into this section and answering these questions, I want to give you permission and I want to encourage you to try not to fill the pardon application in its entirety out in one sitting, but also this section. And I want to take a pause and just mention that this section will, elicit probably the worst time in your life, and it will ask you to talk about it in depth with detail. So be kind to yourself. If you feel that answering 2 questions or even 1 question is enough for a day or for the morning, take a walk, listen to music, but definitely understand, and we understand that answering these questions are very emotional, and I wanted to encourage people to be kind to themselves when going through this process, because it is it's a big application. So when each question, the questions that state in your own words, they truly mean in your own words. They want to hear from you. You are the most important person in this document, and your voice should certainly be what is heard and read by the pardoning advisory board members. So definitely write it from your perspective. Explain what happened. I think also, though, it's important for me as a lawyer counselor to also share that you need to kind of examine why you committed the crime. And so contextually bringing the story of what was going on in your life. Context is important. This is not the time to point the finger. This would not be the time in the pardoning application, they really don't want any equivocation or anyone deviating from pleading guilty. If you pled guilty, they want to know that you understood what you were pleading guilty to some extent. The issue of claiming innocence is an issue that I've heard them refer to as, and it's true, that's an issue for an appealable issue. So it's not right to be claiming innocence when going to the pardoning board, unless there's context around it. And that might be one that you may want to call and reach out to us and we can further discuss. But they want to know your role. So what was your role? What was the space and place that was going on when this crime occurred? Okay. And I want to just bring up a few topics that many clients that we've assisted have brought up as well, with suffering from a drug addiction at that time, a mental health issue, or both, right? Suffering, from the loss of a loved one, experience, significant bouts of homelessness, severe poverty, being in an abusive relationship. So all of these contextual and traumatic, quite honestly, things that were going on in your life are very much relevant. Also explaining, though, the incident and focusing on specifically the incident that is related to the crime. And that's why the criminal complaint, having a copy of the certified record of the criminal complaint with you while you are filling out this section, but also this question specifically, is very, very important. Section 3, question 10, why do you want a pardon? And I know when you first read that question, when I first read it too, it's sort of like, well, duh, who would, of course. But I think reading this question is really important, because in a way that you are really introducing yourself to the Pardon Advisory Board. So answering this question of understanding, pretend that the Pardon Advisory Board has never read of anyone's pardon before. And I think when you look at it that way and you see all the accomplishments, but also the struggle that you probably have suffered from having the felony conviction on your record, I think answering it from that perspective is really important. So here you will want to be specific about details about the label of being a felon. How has that affected a lot of aspects, I'm imagining, of your life? And that, again, it is talking about deviations from career paths or educational pursuits that you may have wanted to do, involvement in your community. Did you pull back from being more involved because of what had occurred to you because of the felony conviction? How were you treated in your family, amongst friends? Ideas about what you wanted to achieve in your life and then what actually happened, and how that may have played, how the felony conviction itself may play a direct role in that. I think also it's important to bring up your mental health and your self-image around the fact that you have lived maybe decades or a few years with the label of a felon. I think that that's fair, and that's what a lot of individuals that we assist bring up as well. I think most literally, being denied housing, being denied rather certain benefits, being denied and overlooked for career advancements or employment altogether. If you have experienced that, this is where one would want to put that as an answer. If you certainly wanted to pursue owning your own business, if you were turned down for the state licensing, or if you wanted to travel, all of those things. So this section, question 10, it will be a larger answer. And that's why I think outlining it and walking away, putting it aside, and then coming back to it maybe a couple times is okay, because there's a lot of things that are packed into each of these answers. Okay. Again, I write down here at the bottom, which I think is fair, is stating that I want my Second Amendment back, which is the main civil right that is taken away permanently by a felony conviction in the state of Wisconsin. I think that there needs to be something, certainly that can be a legitimate reason, but I think it needs to be included with much more detail behind it. And then other aspects too, and other things as well. Question 11, still in section 3, talks about, again, it gives you another big box to fill out, either typing it or handwriting it, but it talks about, what other reasons should a pardon be given? And so some of the suggestions that the application, as you can read along with us, state is length of time that has passed, often in some individuals that we assist, decades, 30 years, 20 years. That's fair. That's very fair. No other criminal activity since the felony that you're seeking the pardon. Or if there is still criminal activity after that, there's been a long period of time, or, you know, something that still is mitigating that or balances that out. You know, I think here would be a fair place to talk about or to reflect. Did you completely change your friends and intentionally cut people out of your life? That was a reason. That was an intentional decision you may have made to cut off ties to people that may not have been the best influence, or if you're with them, you know, it wasn't good. Your own personal development. So here, just, you know, I went on to school, I went on to, you know, pro-social and really healthy endeavors. Natural maturity, you became a parent, or you took on a role in your community that not even forced you, but you just naturally gravitated towards moving on in your life to different things outside of committing crimes. And also, I think here is another time to bring up the stigma or the identity that gets associated, that is associated with having the label as felon. Question 12 here, then list your history, list your employment history since conviction. Here, additional pages would be absolutely appropriate. I mean, they give you 6 opportunities, 6 boxes to fit into, and it's hard for a person to fit into one box, let alone 6 of them. So I think, you know, feel free, if you have an updated or a really nice resume of yourself, this would be a really great time to, when you print out the pardon application, to immediately kind of weave that into the next page right behind this question 12, where they ask, what is your employment history? If you have it where all of the things are really answered in a resume, I say, you know, submit your resume along with the pardon application to really give them a good picture of your employment history. Question 13, it's a straightforward one, but it says list the highest grade you have completed or the highest degree. And so I've listed a few. It kind of weaves into the question 14, which talks about any other, you know, certifications or education that you've received since your education or since your release. So I say for question 13, if you've received a master's or an associate's degree or a high school diploma, putting that down would be fair. And then just question 14, right on its heels, asks, describe any education you have received since your conviction. So here, if you've completed courses and programs or certificates and degrees in any type of arena, even if you're not currently working in that capacity, I truly believe that any education is a benefit to someone. And so include it here, even if it's something that maybe you're not working as a teacher, but you have an early childhood development, you know, degree or certificate. I wouldn't include, they say since conviction, but if it was something that was started while you were in prison, now they offer, or they're trying to offer more programming in prison. If it was something that was started and then you carried on with it, you can mention that. I think vocational training is really important. And so forklift certifications, child safety and development, CPR training, if it goes along with sort of the vein in which you were pursuing in like the medical healthcare arena, computer courses, all of that, this is where one would want to put it down, write it out. Where did you go to school? What was the institution? And include transcripts or copies of diplomas here. Again, I will share, and this will be a large theme that we talk about at the end, anything that you state that isn't sort of, you know, provable or somehow able to be shown through academic achievement or completion of certain things. It's not that it would be seen to work against you, but it may not be considered with as much weight with the pardoning board. So I want to make sure that things are seen and your accomplishments are really, really highlighted by the board. Question 15 there talks about if you had served in the military. Again, here, if you served in the military, you would want to put your date of service, your branch of military's involvement, which branch of the military did you participate in, and then rank and rate and type of discharge, and attach copies here. So any information that you have by way of proving that, again, you'd want to include that in ultimately in the mailed in pardon application. Okay. So section 3, question 16. This is community service activities and volunteer work that you have participated in the community. This is pretty big. And I will share with you in watching many pardon hearings over the years. This is where if it's blank, it could pull a couple questions of like, why haven't you participated in the community? Or is it true you have participated by doing nothing? And I think if you really think about it, I think most of us can say that we've given back in some form or fashion to our community. And how I talk about this with clients and those that we assist in the clinic is, are you involved at all in a church, in a community group? Even something small, as if you shovel out in the winter a neighbor that you know may not have a shovel or a snow blower, or it's difficult for them to shovel. In Meals on Wheels, any type of delivery of food, or even, you know, taking care of checking in on your neighbor. That is, to me, I think, community building and a community service. So, I mean, I kind of want you to dig, if you feel like you have nothing, sit back, maybe take a walk on this one for sure, and dig deep on it, because I think you probably have something. I have had people that we assist in clinic share with me that again, it kind of weaves into the whole theme of like, I pulled back from being more extroverted and being involved in the community because of my felony. I tried to volunteer here, but was told I couldn't because of my felony status. So if you have that as part of your, you know, journey, that you had tried to reach out to volunteer with certain community groups in the area, but then filled out the application or talked to somebody and was learning about how to volunteer, and then they found out or discovered that you had the felony conviction on your record, and then they denied you the opportunity to volunteer, that also should be included in here too, because it gives sort of the picture of, I would have more community service on within my history to share with you, but I've tried and I was rejected and denied and overlooked in opportunities that I sought. Okay, so think of it that way too. Also think of things in maybe a negative way to try to answer them as well. The other thing I try as an exercise to offer to clients that we assist in the clinic is, what did you do over COVID? COVID changed all of our lives. So during COVID-19, if again, you delivered food, or if you helped the neighbor, youngster or child on their virtual learning, that also I would say is community service and would show and exemplify your effect on other people. It doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't have to be at a very large scale. Still in section 3, now on to question 17. Treatment or counseling that you have or that you are participating in since conviction. This would be something that's trying to tap into any aftercare that you're participating in, both with addiction and or mental health, any regular group therapy or counseling sessions you may participate in voluntarily. You know, are you still required to do therapy or counseling? You know, I think that this is really important. I know that some individuals who we've assisted have said, well, I don't need any therapy or counseling because I just stopped cold turkey. And they may have been able to do that, and that's wonderful. But for some people, that's not the case. And I clearly see that. But I think if it was the case that like I went on and I, you know, moved on and I changed my friends, I changed my lifestyle, that here you can put as well to state, I didn't require treatment or counseling. However, I'm always mindful of the fact that this is in my past and I do practice self-care in some form. Again, here, just to remind everyone, unsupported claims such as completion of treatment. So if you're saying that you completed treatment or that you participate in treatment, if you don't have you know, proof of that, it may be disregarded or seen with less weight by the Pardon Advisory Board. So I would just encourage you, if you're going to say I'm currently participating, if you're currently participating in something, I would encourage you to consider approaching maybe the counselor that you work with or someone who you feel comfortable with to get proof of your attendance. That would be very helpful here at this in this question and section. Okay. And then number 18 here, same section. What other steps or actions taken to address criminal behavior to become a positive member of the community? And that language is kind of lifted right out of the pardon application. Here, I think it would be fair, again, if you moved out of Milwaukee, if you moved out of Green Bay, if you moved out of La Crosse, if you moved out of wherever you lived, I left where I was physically and I recreated myself, or I moved from a different space and place where I was. I think that this section is a really fair place to add that. Again, cutting off certain friends or family members. I was given a chance by someone. This is really huge. If you are able to say in your life that someone took a chance on me, and that was the change, that was the break. I was able to do this and accomplish that because somebody believed in me, and that's what set me on the right path. This would be the section to put and highlight that experience. I went on to school. Again, I started a family, and my life responsibilities and role changed. I think any change in role is important. And then also sometimes it's more of an internal thing that happens. And if it's something along the lines of a promise to myself, feel free. This would be the spot to share that. What promise was that you made to yourself, and how did that was what really set you on a different path. Here would be the place to include that. So question 19 talks about letters of recommendation or any other relevant documents that you think that the pardoning board may want to consider in reviewing your application. Again, the application itself states that it's strongly recommended by the board to get letters of recommendation, and I would echo that certainly. If you have anyone in your life that you would want to turn to and say, would you write a letter of character or a letter of recommendation on my behalf? Certainly now would be it. Many people that we assist will ask, well, is there a certain number? I have like 25 people who will stand up and vouch for my character and will say wonderful things about me. And honestly, I don't, here's where maybe you don't want to hedge your bets. You want to really put as much as you can forward if you can. I try not to tell somebody, only one or two. You wouldn't want to. I think if you have a bunch of people that are willing to speak up and speak loudly on your character and what they may have seen as your trajectory and your change and all of that, I think that's really important. And I would encourage you to include them if you can. Yeah. So, especially people who can do that balancing letter. That's the last issue that I bring up here. That balancing letter of like, I knew this person when they were at their lowest, and now I know them today, and I've seen their journey. I think those letters are really powerful and would be something that would echo maybe even already a theme that you have going in your pardon. All right, section 4 then. Here's where we get into, you need to sort of certify and verify that you've done certain things. So here, notice of pardon application. So pages 10 and 11. Page 10 will go to the judge or the court. You may not, as certain courtrooms change and or judges retire, it's best to always send it to the clerk of courts and express that this needs to be, they'll see that it's the pardon notification, but there'll be a cover letter or your application actually attached. And then page 11 is the notice of pardon to the district attorney's office. Here, this is where your judgment of conviction is extremely important. They will have the judge's name. They will have the correct spelling of the judge's name and the district attorney's name. And again, even if the the judge and the district attorney may not be practicing in that capacity anymore, you still need to send those notifications out. Not doing it will put your pardon application in a position where it'll be determined to be incomplete, and then nothing will happen on your pardon application until those notices are returned back to the governor's office. The new thing that has been included in the pardon application since August of 2021 is that it's now strongly encouraged by the Pardon Advisory Board that you include a copy of your application or a cover letter explaining why you are seeking a pardon. In our clinic, we would encourage you to, and we would help you with a cover letter to go along with those 2 notices that need to be sent out. I would encourage you as well to do a cover letter if you can. If you're not wanting to do the cover letter, or if you feel, hey, I want to share my pardon with the judge and the district attorney, you can certainly make a copy of your application. You may not want to put all of the certifications and the attachment documents. That is discretionary and up to you. But again, it's strongly encouraged that you consider either a copy of your pardon or a cover letter explaining why you're now seeking a pardon. And again, that's a new thing that the Pardon Advisory Board has just required. Section 5 talks about background check authorization. And here I think people may sometimes sign this and not really take a good look at it or have a true understanding of what it's truly asking. So when you sign this, you're authorizing the state of Wisconsin to contact and to release the DOC, rather, to release your confinement and your supervision history and records that they hold, and have those released to the governor's office for review. Law enforcement helps in collecting this data. So that's also something that you should be aware of. And then also, by you signing that section of the pardon application, you authorize former employers, schools, police departments, financial institutions, and or any other persons with knowledge of me or of you. You're signing that the Pardon Advisory Board can contact them and ask them for records or for information in their determining of your pardon application. Okay, I think it's worthwhile for me to go through that with people when they're, going through the pardon application. I know that all of the lawyers and the volunteers in our clinic, they go through it as well and explain that, you got to sign this, but this is what it means. And I think that that's really important, that pardon applicants rather have that full understanding. And then section 6 is where the certification, basically the signature and the notarization to certify that what is in the pardon application is truthful, accurate, and that you're putting forth the most accurate information. To have it notarized, again, remember that you have to sign in front of the notary. So if you sign it early, the notary will ask you to re-sign it and date it in their presence. And that's part of their notarization process. Similarly, when you go to get your pardon application notarized, please bring a photo ID. It can be a state ID, but a photo ID that is hopefully has the correct address on it, and all the information on it is accurate, because they'll need to confirm your identity before they have you swear to the notarizing of the document. Again, if the pardon was prepared at the bottom of the page, if the pardon was prepared by someone else, have them sign their name. If it wasn't, then I suppose leave it blank, maybe put a dash or NA in that section. Let's see, I'm trying to think if Mary Cruz, do you have anything else? I went through a ton of information, especially with section 3 is a very large.
Yeah, I think you got all the information. I just want to emphasize what you started with is take your time with this. Yes, you want to get it in as soon as possible, but emphasizing being kind to yourself, especially when answering questions, 9, 10, and 11. taking those breaks when you need to, writing your narrative is really important, but just remember being kind to yourself, because again, this can invoke some trauma, some past memories, the hardest time in your life. So emphasizing of being kind to yourself and taking those breaks when needed, and definitely do not do this all in one sitting. So yeah, but I think in terms of information, you hit everything and you got it all. So now I'll just talk about section 7. So this is not required for you to submit your application. This is just for your own personal use, which I think is very nice of the Pardon Advisory Board to include. So it's just a checklist to help you or to be used as a tool for making sure that it's all complete and that it's ready to submit or mail out. So if you mark yes to all of these questions, you should be set to send in your application. And at the bottom of that checklist, it gives you the address again of where you want to send it to. And then again says electronic submissions will not be accepted. So you do have to mail this in. They won't accept it if you email it to them. So strongly encourage you to go through each of those questions. And like I said, if you check yes for all of them, that means you are set to send your application in. But that, again, yeah, just a checklist for your own personal use. This is not something that you need to include in your application when you send it in.
Okay, so then page 10, again, we're going to talk about the notices that need to be sent out to the judge or court and to the district attorney. We get a lot of calls in clinic asking, I have my pardon completed, but I don't know where or what do I need to send out to these other two entities and agencies. So you would fill out the very top part. So the top of the notice to district attorney and notice to judge states, that they want you to fill the top portion out, and then you mail that, including a copy of your pardon application or a cover letter to each of these separate mailing addresses. Okay, so they don't get mailed out in one. So you would fill out your name, your date of birth, the mailing address, phone number. Probably a good idea to have it match exactly what you have put on the front page of your pardon application. And then there they want you to include in the second box a list of the crimes in which you are seeking a pardon. Again, you can only seek a pardon on a felony conviction. So you'd write those crimes, the court case numbers, as well as the sentence from each or the singularly, whichever, if you received only one sentence, and then the sentencing date. Again, the sentencing date will be found on the judgment of conviction. It'll be listed there. And then you don't fill out anything else on that page. The court or the district attorney's office will fill out the rest of that page, and then they will mail it directly to the governor's office. Some clients have contacted us asking, I haven't received any information back from the DA or the judge. That's because it's not going to go back to you. It'll go directly to the governor's office. Okay. And then after that is submitted, this is important. I would think you would want to submit all of these around the same time. I have had individuals submit the letters, the notices rather, when they've picked up their certified records. So they haven't even filled out their pardon applications. And at that point, I think this should be one of the last things you fill out. And it really should be mailed out around the same time, hopefully maybe the same day that you put in the mail your pardon application. You don't want to have a scenario where the notice from the DA and the judge are going to the governor's office and you haven't even had your pardon application, submitted or received by them, just because you want to make sure that all of your paperwork is where it needs to be, where it needs to go, and nothing's getting lost in transmission or translation. So we want to make sure that things are kind of going out at the same time. Okay. And then the pardon review process. So just doing the application is the biggest and the most important first step, but there's more always to come. And so the governor's office receives your pardon. They will do a review process. They will make sure it's complete. I don't think that that takes very long. It's about 2 to 4 weeks, again, with more interest and more people submitting their pardon applications, you know, that they're working very, very hard in processing a ton of applicants' paperwork. So, but they will notify you if it's determined to be complete. They will notify you as well if they find that it's not complete, and they'll work with you to try to get that pardon application completed. There is, because of a recent governor's executive order 130, there is the opportunity for an expedited process. That is not up to anybody other than the Pardon Advisory Board within their examination and review of your application. If the Pardon Advisory Board, a majority of them, if they find that your offense that you're seeking a pardon on is older, a lower level, nonviolent, and no personal victim in the offense, then it may be determined to be appropriate for expedition. But again, they look at a ton of different factors in their entirety, and that determination is made by them. And they would let you know ultimately if your case or your pardon application rather is going to be expedited. Similarly, if it's not going to be expedited, but it's deemed to be complete and appropriate to go forward for a hearing, currently there's a 13 to 14 month wait to have your hearing in front of the Pardon Advisory Board. Currently, they're hosting those hearings over Zoom, but they are getting through a lot of interviews per each pardon hearing day. So they're actually hearing 30 people on the second Friday of every month, and they're getting through quite a few individuals. So it doesn't mean that if you're not going to have the expedited process that you still wouldn't and aren't going to be heard and have your fair chance in front of the Pardon Advisory Board. If you are denied, either because of not having because of the ineligibility, or if you're denied after a hearing or denied even before the hearing, you can reapply in 18 months. There isn't a way to appeal it, but you can reapply in 18 months and redo a pardon application at that time. And then here's our contact information. We are the Mobile Legal Clinics Expungement Pardon Clinic, and there's our phone number and our email address. We try to answer questions. We take a lot of questions over the phone and over email as best we can. And so we just thank you and wish you all the best of luck. I will share with you that Mari Cruz and I in the next couple of months are going to be in the community doing in-person presentations where we will be handing out copies of the pardon and going through how to fill out the pardon application so that people who want access to this justice can get access to this justice and hopefully securing their pardon. Mari Cruz, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, just again, reminder, be kind to yourself when you're going through this process. Be patient because there are a lot of people now eligible for this. So be kind to yourself, be patient, and I wish you all the very best of luck. And again, reminding you to reach out to us if you have any questions or concerns at all.
Thank you.
Thanks.